Hi, everybody. Brianna here with Nurse Deck and another installment of the Nurse Voice, our Insider's Perspective interview series. Nurse Deck is proud to be built on the collective nurse voice, and today we are adding the voice of Hilario Castillo. Hilario is an RN entrepreneur who utilized his acute care clinical expertise to launch a med tech startup called Innovative Neurons LLC. And he is the inventor, which is so cool, of the fast syringe, which we will hear more about in just a minute. So welcome. Thank you for doing this with us.
Hey, Brianna, it's great to be here. I love Nurse Deck. I've been seeing what you guys have been doing. Amazing. So just very honored and humbled to be here and have an opportunity to share my story with your platform. So thank you for having me.
Well, tell us how it all started. How did you get your start in nursing?
Sure. So incredibly, in the early 2000s, initially I went to college for computer graphics.
No
Uh,
kidding.
yeah. Computer graphics. I loved art. It's always been a passion of mine. And my cousin, who was at a neighboring college here in New York, said to me, "Hey, Larry, I think you should pursue a change in your career. You're always passionate about, helping others since I've known you, and you've always trying to figure things out." So I gave her some thought. I realized at that time, the computer graphics area, there was a lot of what I was studying. I realized in some stores, like in Best Buy or other locations, they were coming up with similar software. So I
Mm,
figured the market is going to be eventually very saturated with that. And I always did have a passion to help others. I always enjoyed how the body works. So decided to take a chance with one semester left. And once I took that first A&P course, it was supposed to be like the toughest course in the college that I went to. And I got an A+ in it because I found the content just very familiar and I just
yeah.
really enjoyed it. So I never looked back from there. Once I took the first A&P course and then chemistry and did excellent in it, I just realized this was my area, and I just never looked back. And that's how I got started into nursing per se.
hmm
Yeah, that was how that transition occurred.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, we hear a lot of, I started out in this and then I transferred over, but computer graphics feels like about the opposite end of the spectrum as you could possibly get. That's awesome. That's very cool. And then how did you get into where you are now with the tech startup and the innovative products that you guys are coming up with?
Well, great question. So as you're familiar, here in the East Coast, there's an incredible culture for tech entrepreneurship. So at the same time, while I was graduating, my mother was working on an organic line of beauty products that she had created herself, and she was working and trying to bring to the market. So I happened to work at a hospital where I met patients that had an incredible amount of experience in entrepreneurship and business. And some of them became my mentors from just treating them at the bedside. I spoke to them
Wow.
about, yes, I spoke to them about what my mother was doing. I was very passionate about it. And obviously at that time, I did not know anything about business or entrepreneurship
Yeah.
because, they didn't teach us that in school at that time,
Right.
especially. So they decided to become mentors and coach me, and we put together an amazing team to help rebrand my mother's line of organic beauty products. And eventually, that was the initial, I guess you can say, exposure towards entrepreneurship, and
hmm
having that taste of what one needs to do to think in building a startup. So about a year later, I witnessed one of my colleagues sustain an accidental needle stick. And like many other nurses and healthcare providers, we're always full of ideas and always thinking of ways like, oh,
Yeah.
perhaps this technology would be best if it functioned this way. So since I had the support of mentors and advisors that I met as patients, it gave me the encouragement that I needed to pursue an idea that I thought at that time when I saw my colleague sustain the accidental needle stick. It's like that light bulb moment, and
Hmm.
decided to move forward and try to do something with it. So
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard someone say that patients became their mentors. I mean, we know as
yeah,
nurses, we build relationships with our patients, but that's really, really cool. It just shows the level that you were on in terms of like connecting with your patients, that you could um, just have that type of conversation with them. That's amazing.
yeah, it
Um,
really was. It was very fortunate. It was one of those things that I can't explain, and it's a few of them, and they're like family to me. They mean so much to me because I've
yeah.
known them for over 10 years, and they have been there since day one, guiding, advising, making the connections, investing. So it's just been incredible.
Incredible. That's really cool. So you got this light bulb moment, you have the idea. How do you go from that place to actually like holding a product in your hand? Like, are you tinkering
Right
around
here,
in
the
your
prototype.
garage, or where is this happening?
Right. So as I was mentioning earlier, New York, as well as the East Coast, for that matter, Boston, etc., has an incredible culture of entrepreneurship and support. So in the process of entrepreneurship, going to local events to learn about social media and business plan creations, the importance of networking. I'm connecting with different folks, whether it's hardware engineers or mechanical engineers or just other mentors, and learned about different resources and programs here in the New York area. So at that time, I did not even know what a provisional patent was or a utility patent. So I spoke to one of those mentors who we had a meeting, and they introduced me to a patent attorney, which was the first time I learned about a patent attorney. I spoke to them about my idea, my concept, and they pretty much just advised on what are the steps that I needed. So eventually, through one of those hardware events, I met another a patent attorney and a mechanical engineer that helped in bringing the concept to a provisional patent application, and started working on the very early stages of the 3D model and the initial prototype. So that was how the initial process began. Pretty much.
Hmm. Very cool. So tell us, we want to know the details of this syringe for all the nurses that are listening and watching and reading this. Tell us all about the features and how it's different
Sure.
from what we handle on a daily basis.
Sure. So as you're probably familiar with, in the acute care setting, especially the ER, or even in med surg units as well, ICU, paramedics, when we try to withdraw medications with that we use regularly in the acute care settings, like your Ativans, your Salumedrol, any in your psychotropic medications in the psych units that are
Hmm.
very viscous. As you know, it requires us to manually look for a syringe
Hmm.
and an 18 gauge needle.
Hmm.
And we have to manually attach the needle and withdraw. And then we have to withdraw the medication with the 18 gauge, as you know.
Hmm.
Withdraw it. I'm not going to show it. And then now we have safety needles, right? Which we apply
Hmm.
the safety feature, but we still have to manually switch, right?
Hmm.
And then we have to attach the 21 or 23 gauge to give the injection. And then again, we have to apply the safety feature and discard of the syringe with this, hopefully with the safety feature applied,
Hmm.
which isn't the case with most instances, because despite there being various safety syringes and safety needles, we still have close to 1 million accidental needle sticks globally.
Wow.
And it's almost, according to the last data, close to $1 billion in cost globally. Uh,
Really?
yeah, to treat accidental needle sticks. So it's a
Oh,
major problem that has not been solved.
yeah.
So, so the solution I came up with, it's a syringe that has the needles that you need already in the syringe. So in other words, it comes with the 18 gauge already pre-assembled.
Hmm.
It simply push and you withdraw. This is an early prototype, by the way.
Okay.
You would inject and you would withdraw the 18 gauge, right? Once you withdraw the medication, instead of manually switching, you simply go like this and you rotate to the needle that you need, and then take out the
Ah,
21, inject. Once you inject, it withdraws back right away. You discard. So
wow.
instead of taking about 2 or 3 minutes, which is very valuable, it's a lot
Yeah.
of time for us, and a procedure that we do so much,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a very busy environment, very stressful environments like the ER, the ICU, med surge,
Hmm.
etc. This takes about 15 seconds compared to 2 or 3 minutes. So it's a significant time savings and de-risking all those steps, which will allow us to have more time for other things, or just allow us to treat patients faster as well, and many other things to come along with this technology.
Wow, that is so cool. You know what it reminds me of is those click pens where you push down like different colors, which I mean, it's such a small little thing, but it's so genius, those little
Right.
tiny modifications that you can make to stuff that you use every day. That's the stuff that like really, like you said, it's just a few minutes, but adding up over the course of your day, that's significant amount of time.
Yep.
Um, that's
Yeah.
incredible. Very cool. So what
Thanks.
stage is it in, like sales now and production and distribution or?
So that's what we're hoping to be very soon. We're still at the prototype stage. We've received an incredible amount of support
Mm,
from many nursing organizations that we have been working with and are part of. So definitely a big shout out to those nursing organizations that have provided a lot of support along the way,
right.
that a lot of mentoring and support and resources and networking. Um, so we have received their endorsement and their support on a national stage. We have interest in international as well, places like India and Canada, and even
Yeah,
in Africa, we have folks that are just waiting for the technology to be ready to
right.
go to it. So what we are right now, we're at the prototype stage. We have a utility plan issued. We have a early working prototype. So we're currently working right now on the next phase prototype. Once that's completed, which we'll anticipate would be in a couple of months,
Hmm.
we're going to next milestone would be for us to take that prototype and start doing small pilot trials where we can validate our data, publish our results, and hopefully be able to raise the necessary funding that we're trying to raise to take us to market, which would be, as you just mentioned, a product that's ready to go to market,
Hmm.
the regulatory clearance, and have our distribution channels lined up as well.
Yeah,
So
that's really
those are
cool.
the next milestones, and we already know what we need to do. We've identified our partners. We just, work in the process.
Yeah, that's incredible. What a cool story.
Right.
Uh, Talk to us about your thoughts more broadly on the role of nurses in healthcare innovation, specifically to improve patient care outcomes, which is, the big measurement that every hospital has.
Sure. Well, I tell you, since I started in this process, I've seen an incredible amount of nursing innovation, which, I love it. It makes me feel great about where we're headed in healthcare innovation, nursing innovation, especially. When I started out, I initially connected with an organization called SOPI, which is Society of Physician Entrepreneurs. They have different chapters. They were very supportive
Hmm.
early when I was unable to connect with nursing innovation organizations. But in the last couple of years, it's just been an incredible amount of nursing innovation and organizations such as Sansio, for example,
Yeah.
and the Nurse Innovation Hub as well, and several others out there. But those specifically come to mind that have been an incredible amount of support and resource for
Hmm.
myself and their founders as well as their board. Incredible amount of talent, nurses that have been able to take the nursing hat and put on an entrepreneurship hat as well, and have created amazing platforms of encouraging other nurses to move forward with their innovations, create a platform where they can come pitch their ideas, try to get resources with other organizations that they have partnered with, other big companies as well. So I just believe that in the next couple of years, we're going to be seeing a lot of these companies having nurses or healthcare providers in
Hmm.
their engineering departments or advising for the engineering departments in roles where we're going to help really bring a lot of very exciting, innovative products that are going to I would say, have more efficiency as far as results for patient care,
Hmm.
safety, and processes for the hospitals as well.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. Since we've been doing these conversations, one of the nurses that we interviewed, Marion Leary, she was talking about these nurse
Which is
hackathons.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
I had never heard of this. And I'm like, this sounds like the friggin' coolest thing I've ever heard of. Like
Yeah.
everybody just like this big hive mind and everybody's supporting one another and, connecting you to the people that like if you're a nurse working at the bedside and you got this idea in your head, and then all of a sudden you're like, but I know there's, all the stuff you just mentioned, like the supply chains and the patent and the attorneys and all these things that you don't know what you don't know about it, and just being able to plug into these environments that are so supportive to that nurse entrepreneur spirit, I guess, which is just so cool. It's
Yeah,
so
because I tell you, as Miriam said, which I know her from Sansia, which is amazing, a pioneer in this field of nursing entrepreneurship. So big shout out to her and her the
yeah.
organization that they're involved with doing amazing things. It can be very, I guess you can say, discouraging if you don't have the support. Where you have a great idea as an end user, as a nurse, you came up with the concept because you identified a better way of doing it as an end user, and not knowing where to go or having a lot of skepticism, or not finding the right support, it can be very discouraging. So, you
Right.
know, now having those organizations that are filled with encouraging nurse entrepreneurs, it has made a big difference for other nurses that are coming along and trying to bring the technologies to the market.
Yeah, it's just so cool. um, I feel like nurses are just natural problem solvers. Like,
Yes.
everybody like on TikTok, it's like, what are the latest hacks and the workarounds? And you have to be careful with that stuff. But that's how our minds work, especially when, in this climate that we're in, where we're hearing about nurses taking on like 6 and 8 patients, and they need to use every second of their time on their shift. And that's where your mind goes, is how to make streamline things and get to the solutions faster. And I
Absolutely.
just,
I was reading an article that a lot of the patient burnout that we're seeing as of late has to do a lot with feeling overwhelmed.
yeah.
And if you think about technologies like this traditional process that takes 2 to 3 minutes, then
Hmm.
itself, when you have 10 patients, as I've had when I was working in the ER, uh, can be overwhelming. And if you have technologies out there that can help reduce the amount of time in procedures, these are the little things that are going to make a difference and help them reduce that burnout, in addition to many other factors, of course. But these are small things that can be done that can help eventually, decrease some of that time consuming processes that we do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I think nurse entrepreneurship, especially with, tech stuff and the solutions that we're seeing and the ideas that are coming out, it's just such a great example of promoting nurses and supporting nurses and what nurses can do when they have that support. I think nurses are realizing the collective power that they have, but this is just such a positive example of how to apply that to where everybody benefits from it down the road. Yeah, it's really, really cool. I bet it's exciting to be a part of it.
Yep.
I bet it's also tedious. I'm sure there's parts of it that you're just like, oh my God.
Yes, I could definitely speak on that.
What's the biggest challenge you've experienced so far, and what did you learn from it?
Well, definitely raising funds. It's not easy. As I mentioned earlier, I was able to raise pre-seed funding from one of my mentors that I met at the bedside, who's an advisor as well. And we're getting ready to, we have a deck finalized, and we're finalizing a few things to try to, go on the road and get the necessary raise. But I would say raising funding is a big challenge when you
Mm,
don't come from that background in entrepreneurship and business, or when you're a solo entrepreneur, because that's a major difference as well. When you try to launch a product by yourself,
mm-hmm.
not affiliated with a university hospital that can provide all the resources and takes a significant amount of equity, but
Yeah.
still they'll provide, the whole process. That can be very, very challenging as well. And, and I was very fortunate to get accepted to a program here in New York, part of NYC it's called eLab, which accepts about 20 students or technologies per year. And I was one of like two that was solo entrepreneurs at that time. And it was like an MBA program for healthcare entrepreneurship. And it provided a lot of resources and network and connections and
Mhm.
that I've worked with along the way. But I would say that's a challenge. Knowing how to prepare for raising the necessary funds, as well as taking away that nursing hat that we have that is about caring, etc. Right?
Mhm.
Taking away that hat and putting on our entrepreneurship and business hat to be able to have that conversation for raising funds. So it's a transition that one needs to know how to make as well.
Yeah.
I would say that's one of the main challenges that any entrepreneur, but especially if you don't come from a business background, you certainly have to know how to transition
Right.
that
Yeah.
mindset.
I can imagine that would be very challenging, especially since some people like myself hear the word networking and you just think of like, oh, awkward small talk and, just like schmoozing. And I'm sure there's, way more skill involved than that. But to people that's so far out of their field of expertise or where they feel comfortable in, like I can imagine just that aspect alone would be intimidating. Um, that, but it's so cool to hear you talk about over and over the mentors that you've had, and their guidance and how that has helped you. Um,
That's made all the difference.
yeah,
I was
we're
just very fortunate.
here where we love hearing about mentor relationships. We talk a lot about it on our platform, and specifically how to like go about it if you don't feel like you have a mentor. Um, for nurses that are listening to this or reading this and thinking that, oh, this is something that like it's so interesting to me, I would love to get involved. How can you inspire those nurses to take the next step to get closer
So,
to?
you know what? Just go for it. Just go with your gut. If you're a nurse, you're already an awesome person just by what we do on a daily basis to help save lives. I mean, that in itself, it's an incredible, such an honor, such a rewarding career, knowing that we're making such a difference on a daily basis. But if you have an idea and your gut tells you that you're going to help solve a problem and you're going to make something much better, more efficient, just go for it. Go with your gut. The worst that can happen is you don't make it, but at least you've tried. So,
Mhm.
there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of organizations that would take you by the hand and guide you and support you. It's not like it was, 10, 20 years ago where these organizations were not around, and just a great culture of support out there. So it's definitely just don't think too much about it. Believe in yourself, believe in that gut feeling that you can do this, and just go for it.
Yeah, that's a great message. Tell us what is in store for Innovative Neurons down the line. Do you have any other cool technologies that may be coming to a hospital near us?
Well, absolutely, definitely our company was developed to launch a series of very cool and problem solving devices. So the syringe is the first technology that we're focusing on, which we want to first launch to the market. But down the pipeline, we do have other technologies that we have been working on that are the early stages
Hmm.
that we anticipate to work on after we reach our milestones with the syringe. For example, we're working on a very cool wearable device that's going to help with detection of deep vein thrombosis early on and address that problem as well, which was an idea that came several years ago, but after COVID, I realized it's a much significant problem.
Yeah,
So that's one that we're definitely going to focus on trying to, work on very soon as well. As soon as we get the traction and we get to where we need to get with the syringe project first.
yeah, that's amazing. Um, I know we've talked a little bit about the community aspect and how there's a lot of resources and support for nurses that have this entrepreneurial spirit. We're huge on community, obviously, at Nurse Tech. We're a big virtual community. How do you think nurses benefit from being in community?
I mean, the power of networking, you just never know who you're going to meet. So I just think that when you're in a community, you're exposing your ideas and to others that are going to possibly become partners, potential partners for your, venture, whatever it is, whether it is that you want to write a book, whether it is that you want to become a coach, or you have an idea, or you want to just, launch some sort of consulting business from your knowledge, anything. By being in that community, especially such as this one, right? You're networking with folks that have the same passion as you, and
Right.
that are, because of nursing, we're the most ethical profession out there year over year. Most likely you're going to connect with people that have your same, ideals and values, that
Hmm.
are going to want to help you. So I think it's just limitless what you can gain from being in a community such as this one, especially with Nurse Deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's for a lot of nurses, even if they're not, having ideas percolate around in their head, there's still the aspect of just feeling overwhelmed and burnt out from where a lot of nurses are coming from right now, and being able to be just around people to sort of hear, stories like yours, that there's this whole other side of nursing, that you can get excited about nursing again and plug in, and there's this whole crew of people out there that would love to talk about all this stuff with you, and you can geek out over it. And I think it's just such a important, the whole concept of nurse-led innovation is such a important infusion of energy back into our profession. And that's why I love talking. I mean, I am not a tech person at all, but I love talking to you guys that are involved in tech, because every one of you is just so passionate, and that's like, people just respond to that naturally.
No,
So
in that tenor, I would just piggyback on what you're saying. You have to also be patient. You cannot expect that if you come up with an idea that you're going to be a millionaire next year.
yeah, right.
You have to believe. You have to know that there's a process. Some technologies are faster than others. So, for example, medical devices usually take a long time because
Sure.
you get intellectual property. Your patent issued. You have to go through regulatory processes. This can take years.
Hmm.
Some companies, if as I mentioned, if you have affiliations with university hospitals, it might be faster
Hmm.
because provide all the funding and resources. Other technologies, if it's perhaps tele-based or website-based technologies, might be a bit faster,
Hmm.
less processes, but all of them require a certain amount of time and patience. So certainly, I would say to any nurse out there, or any healthcare professional, just know that you're going to be in this for some time, and don't get discouraged, don't get desperate. Keep your day job.
Hmm. Yeah.
Eventually, everything will fall into place, and one day, you'll see the fruits of your creation. Just
Yeah.
have to be consistent and persevere.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with us and sharing your story and how you got from point A to point B to point Z. um, we always like to end with, if you have a message for nurses right now, or if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to send out there into the nursing world.
I guess I wish I would have known that before my last comment.
Right.
Well, well, first I would just say is a pleasure to be here in this platform. Again, you guys are doing amazing things. Very excited and honored to have been one of the folks you guys interviewed and to have my story out there. So thank you for that. And I guess my message to the nurses and professionals, nurse professionals and healthcare professionals out there, just believe in yourself, uh, believe in that gut feeling when you have an idea, uh, believe that it can be done. The resources are out there. Uh, take everything that you learn as an experience, even if it's speaking with someone that might be skeptical, take that energy and show yourself in that person that there is a different way that you can move forward, and just believe in yourself and you can do this. Just there's a lot of support out there. You're not alone.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you again. This was awesome. Like I said, I love talking to people that have all this knowledge about stuff that I just, I just think it's so cool and it's so impressive. So, you guys are doing amazing things, and yeah, we love hearing your story.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure. If anyone wants to know more about us, our website is being further developed, but it's innovativeneurons.com.
Okay,
If anyone wants to reach out, you can email me, info@innovativeneurons.com. That's,
perfect. Great.
uh, and I'm on LinkedIn, Hilario Castillo. Any nurses or healthcare professionals out there that have any questions or just need guidance, I'll be glad to be of support. So feel free to reach out. I guess the easiest way is on LinkedIn. You can just look me up and send me a connect and send me a message just so you can know, so I can know that you came from Nurse Deck, and it'll be a pleasure for me to help out any other nurses out there that are trying to bring ideas to the market.
Awesome. We love to see it. It's great. And for those of you that are out there listening to this, we'll have the written format in our magazine as well. And we'll have all the links and the names of the organizations and the tech groups that you mentioned before. So definitely want to get all those resources out to everybody. But again, thank you so much. It was awesome meeting you.